Breaking the Mafia's omertà. What really happens to mob snitches? The ruthless code of silence means one thing: betrayal is unforgivable. In today's video, we uncover the brutal punishments that await those who dare to break the mob's most sacred rule. How far will the Mafia go to punish their own? Watch now to find out. At number 3. Jimmy the Weasel Fratianno. Jimmy Fratianno was born in Naples, Italy, on November 14, 1913. He and his family immigrated to Cleveland, Ohio, where he was still an infant. Raised in one of Cleveland's most notorious Italian neighborhoods, Fratianno had been groomed into a life of crime by the time he was 12 years old, even with sporadic bookie gambling. By the time he was a teenager, he had infiltrated the local area's gambling and became an equal partner to an operation. His nickname was the Weasel, due to his attempt to run on foot from the police when the incident occurred. Fratianno had risen through the Cleveland crime ranks by his 20th birthday, but luck would soon run out for him in 1937, when a robbery conviction sentenced him to 7 years at Ohio State Prison. Out on parole, Fratianno came to Los Angeles, where he affiliated himself with the Dragna Licata crime family. Among Los Angeles mobsters, Los Angeles Fratianno built relations with notorious mobsters, including Mickey Cohen, and was infamous for the ruthlessness with which he conducted his business. Los Angeles Fratianno was arrested and convicted multiple times, including one 6-year attempted extortion conviction in 1954, yet his star continued to rise in organized crime. Immediately following the imprisonment of Dominic Brooklier, Fratianno briefly became co-acting boss of the Los Angeles family with Louis Tom Dragna. His time in this position was tense with infighting when he was called a traitor, and also began attempting to control a separate faction. It was approximately now when Fratianno's associate, Ferrito, agreed to become an FBI government informant. Feeling that his life was slipping through his fingers, he agreed to also be an FBI informant. He testified about the operations of the Mafia. This led to charging over 15 members of the Cleveland crime family and gave information on certain high-profile crimes, the most significant of those being the bombing of Irish mob boss Danny Green. For his testimony, Fratianno received a 5-year prison term. He served 21 months of it. He entered the witness protection program after this and wrote 2 books. The Last Mafioso and Vengeance is Mine were their names. A decade later, he was taken off this program and had received nearly $1 million. He was bitter that the government had left him in the lurch, more particularly since there existed a $100,000 contract on his head from the Mafia. Fratianno died of natural causes at age 80 in 1993. Although he had proved himself to be a despicable betrayer, he was allowed to die of natural causes rather than suffer violent deaths, as were inflicted upon so many other former mobsters. At number 2. Abe "Kid Twist" Reyes. Abe Reyes was born on May 10, 1906, in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn, New York, to Jewish immigrant parents. Born into a poor neighborhood, Reyes quit school when he was in the 8th grade. He soon joined local gangs that roamed the streets of his area. Reyes was arrested first at the age of 15 for stealing, staying in a juvenile correctional facility for 4 months. When he was released, he went on to really get involved in criminal activity and eventually began working for the Shapiro brothers, high-powered members of the Jewish American underworld. Unable to avenge himself on the brothers, he became part of Murder, Inc. in 1933. As an associate of this deadly gang, he became infamous with his icy pick and more violent methods of slaughter. He was known to kill many under trivial reasons, hence they nicknamed him the canary who could sing but couldn't fly. By the year 1940, Reyes was arrested with multiple counts of murder, for which he would face capital punishment. In his bid to save himself from the harsh sentence, he became a government informant as he fingered several big-time mobsters, including his childhood friend Bugsy Goldstein. His testimony resulted in solving about 70 unsolved murders, while several key organized crime figures were convicted due to his testimony. Having agreed to cooperate with the police, Reyes was placed in police protection because he was threatened by the mob. He was lodged at the Half Moon Hotel in Coney Island under close police supervision. On November 12, 1941, the morning of Albert Anastasia's trial, Reyes fell to his death from a hotel window despite being guarded by police. Claims that he was murdered by the mob or trying to escape abound. But a grand jury later ruled it accidental, and many still question the circumstances. The life and death of Reyes were a high cautionary tale regarding the dangerous fate that awaits the turncoats who betray the Mafia. His story clearly outlined the savage consequences reaped after turning an informant and risk in the criminal underworld. At number 1, Sammy the Bull Gravano. Salvatore, Sammy the Bull. Gravano was born on March 12, 1945, to Italian immigrants Giorlando Geri and Caterina Gravano. He grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, a predominantly Italian-American neighborhood. Ironically, Sammy had a relatively normal upbringing compared to some other future mobsters. However, as with many mobsters, he suffered from dyslexia and was bullied, which caused him to become frustrated, ultimately channeling this energy into anger and violence. At age 13, Gravano joined a local youth gang called the Rampers that was involved in petty crimes, such as car thefts and burglaries. By age 16, he dropped out of school and became a full-time street urchin. Gravano was drafted into the military in 1964 at age 19, during which he served as a mess hall cook at Fort Jackson and became a corporal. He returned to Bensonhurst after obtaining an honorable discharge, with criminal tendencies unharnessed and now more deeply committed to organized crime. He started working for the family in various illegal operations such as larceny, hijacking, armed robbery, and loan sharking. Anthony had been hooked up with the Colombo crime family through a young man who had affiliations with the family. Young Gravano's efficiency and brutality caught the attention of the family's boss, Joseph Colombo. After committing his first murder at the age of 25, Gravano killed Joseph Colucci, another associate of the Colombo crime family, in an alleged family dispute. Tension developed between Gravano and another Colombo family associate, Ralph Sparrow. To steer clear of conflict, Gravano started working for the Gambino crime family, one of New York's most powerful mafia families. He discovered a change was needed as he rose through the ranks of the Gambino crime family due to cold efficiency and loyalty. It was by 1976, when he was 31, that Gravano received an official initiation as a made man in the Gambino family, thereby becoming one of the trusted enforcers. Gravano's strategic violence and his potency ultimately made him a potent figure in the Gambino family. He played an active role in the plot to murder Paul Castellano, the head of the Gambino family, in December of 1985. His murder plot, developed by Gravano, John Gotti, Angelo Ruggiero, Frank DeCicco, and Joseph Armoni, paved the way for Gotti to become the head of the Gambino family. In the wake of the killing of Castellano, Gotti chose Gravano as his advisor, but later on, this position transformed into the underboss, which is the underboss, second in command of the Gambino family. In the initial stages of their time in the underworld, Gravano and Gotti enjoyed a good working relationship. He was more than a simple henchman for Gotti, but it also made Gotti dependent on Gravano for ruthlessness and streetwise business acumen. Gravano had even become protective of Gotti from any legal troubles. However, when Gotti became resentful of his newfound financial success in legitimate businesses and the sudden recognition by the Gambino family members, there were fresh areas to dispute between them. In 1988, Gotti made the fatal decision to decree that he should meet weekly at the Ravenite Social Club. However, little did he know then that the FBI had bugged the club. With time, it was able to record many compromising conversations between Gotti and members of his entourage, including Gravano. It was in December 1990 that Gotti, Gravano, and others were apprehended. Gotti had multiple charges pending against him: 5 murders, conspiracy charges, loan sharking, illegal gambling, obstruction of justice, and tax evasion. From the wiretap recordings, Gotti produced a plan to frame Gravano as the mastermind behind every crime that they had committed. Having heard this, Gravano felt betrayed, and considering that Gotti would kill him eventually, he opted to cooperate with the government. Gravano was the first member of a New York Mafia family's hierarchy to become a state witness. It was a historical move on his part. His testimony was crucial in convicting John Gotti and other members of the high echelons of the Gambino family. Gotti was sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility of parole, while Gravano was given his life for aiding the government. Gravano was released from prison in 1994 through witness protection, but he abandoned the program. Although he effectively left the world of organized crime, Gravano could not keep himself completely at bay from trouble. In the late 1990s, he turned to drug trafficking and was arrested. Gravano ended up writing books and detailing his experiences in the Mafia, revealing the inner workings of the underworld. The stories of Jimmy Fratiano, Abe Reles, and Sammy Gravano serve as chilling reminders of the brutal reality faced by those who betray the Mafia. While some found a way to escape with their lives, others met grim fates that illustrate the severe consequences of breaking the code of omertà. These tales highlight the dangerous underbelly of organized crime, where loyalty is paramount and the price of betrayal is often death.